everyone, and welcome to another edition of Behind the Bench. And today our special guest is Declan Hill. Now, Declan Hill has written a few books, one of them being, oh, I have it upside down, or do I?
No, that's the clever title where we flip the character. Yeah,
right.
You see that graphic design peculiarity. Anyways, The Fix, Soccer and Organized Crime.
So The Fix, Soccer and Organized Crime, and I read it a couple of years ago and I was totally fascinated by it. And so we're super excited to have Declan as our special guest. Now, he's one of the world's foremost experts on match fixing. He's got a doctorate in sociology at University of Oxford. And he's professor of investigations with the Henry C. Lee College of Criminal Justice and Forensic Science, and with the University of New Haven in Connecticut. He's written for the New York Times, Toronto Star, BBC, The Guardian. He's been on CNN and CBC, Al Jazeera, Corriere della Sera from Milan, Sydney, Morning Herald in Australia. He's even looked at fixing and corruption in ice hockey. He's lectured to the IOC and a whole host of other people. He even has a podcast called Crime Waves. So Declan, welcome, and we're just so delighted to have you to hear what you have to say. And maybe you might want to add to some of the things that I've mentioned.
Oh gosh, no, I have no desire to talk about myself any more than is absolutely necessary, because there's some really important things we're going to be discussing this morning. First of all, we're going to take a look at organized crime and how and why it gets into the world of sport, specifically soccer. And then I'm going to take a quick look at gambling addiction, because in my opinion, it is the new opioid epidemic. It is coming for our young people, age 14 to 35, and is creating a devastation that really hasn't been responded to either at the government level or really on sports level. So that's why I'm here, Michael and John, on this morning, is to give this information out to coaches, because quite often there's a demographic guide between what the young guys are doing and what the older guys like ourselves know. And so let's bridge that today. Let's start to begin this conversation. So why don't I just get cracking? As John was kind enough to say, my work's being shared around the world. My books are in 24 languages now. Excuse me, 22. There's 2 possible ones coming on. But Hollywood has optioned a number of my works, and they made it what's called a teaser reel of my work. So why don't we start by watching that teaser reel? It's a couple of minutes, and it brings you in, if you don't know my work, into what I do. So here we go, guys.
Reports of match fixing at Wimbledon, reportedly all orchestrated by the shady world of gambling syndicates in Russia and Italy.
It's something we've never seen before. Hundreds of games being fixed, dozens of different sports around the world, every single day.
International Boxing Association, track and field, football, corruption allegations.
You feel cheated. You feel that what you're watching is not real.
You actually can control the game, meaning you will never win.
Be it the Borzakone in Russia, be it the Chinese Triad, be it the Balkan criminals, be it La Cosa Nostra here in America. They're based out of Manila, Macau, Hong Kong. They're combining, they're working together, they're forming alliances, and those guys have their finger in every single sports event around the world.
就各欧洲的足球，然后美国职棒、台湾职棒、日本棒球、韩国棒球、曲棍球。
It's literally everywhere, from Europe, the United Kingdom, Central America, South America, even Australia.
To me, it was great. Great business. We can get athletes going along with us to compromise the outcome of a game. Terrific, because there was big money in it.
One offer in Moscow, one off in Chennai, and one in Paris.
They're cheating boss, they're Japan, everybody. I'll never box for ABA again. My dream's been shattered now.
You've got players committing suicide. You've got coaches jumping off buildings in shame and the dishonor, and also the fear that what happens when you bring in these organized crime groups into international sport.
eventually they'll come back and say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. You know, it's getting to me. You know, thank you very much for the opportunity. And my response was always the same. Excuse me, we had a deal. You're done when I tell you you're done. That's it.
It's really going to be difficult to watch any sporting event in the same way ever again.
Okay, guys, let's take a look at why this is happening in international sport. Let's kind of figure our way through this field here. So before we go any further, here's all my contact information. If there's anything that seems a bit odd or you're trying to figure out, hey, is this actually true? Let me know. Just make sure that you guys get my details. And we're going to progress today in a way that I think is slightly different, but I think we got to move with our times. We're now in 2026, and we don't learn the same way that we did 2015, even 10 years ago. These things have destroyed our minds. I'm not saying that we're necessarily stupider, but I am saying that our attention span is not what it used to be. So I'm not going to talk to you for an hour and a half or 45 minutes declaiming. Rather, what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to set my timer here for 15 minutes, and then I've got a very complicated high-tech device. It's called a bell. And after 15 minutes, I'm going to ring it, and we're going to take a wee break. Wherever you are, guys, go outside, do some texting, come back in after a couple of minutes, and John and Michael, who's coming in from Trinidad and Tobago, and I will have a little chat, and then we'll go on and we'll do another 17 minutes of the PowerPoint presentation. But I want you guys to inhale this work nice and slowly, take a relaxed, but when I'm doing the PowerPoint presentation, when I'm doing this kind of stuff, I want you guys to focus only on this. Don't try and do your emails at the same time because you're going to miss something. So we'll focus really hard. We'll take a break after 15 minutes with my magic bell, and then we'll get back into it. All right, guys, let's get back to that PowerPoint presentation. So what you have seen is that world as it's going around, all the murders and the organized crime that's getting in. But there's a number of scandals that we're seeing across the world now. You're seeing it in baseball. You're seeing it in, famous case if you're coming in from Toronto, Jonte Porter in the NBA. We've got Jonte Porter's telegrams coming in here. Michael, are you ready to do some reading here? Michael Austin in Trinidad Tobago, can you do some reading for us? No, Michael's feeling a bit shy, I think, which is very rare for him.
Why you want me to read the screen itself?
There's my Trini man. Good man. All right, I want you to start reading, Michael, from the second line. In quotes, screenshot this, me born is forcing to do that. And just keep reading from there.
Screenshot this born in for simply I want to do this. In response, player one wrote, if I don't do a special with your sermons, then it's up. And they hate me, and you hate me. And if I don't get you 8,000 by Friday, you are coming to Toronto to beat me up.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. I know it's difficult to be thrown into the well like that, but I just wanted to make sure there's a different voice on our presentation for our coaches. Okay, guys, Jonte Porter is 25 years old, and here he is. This is the direct text he has that he's sending to these illegal organized crime gangsters that he's gambling with, saying, mate, if I don't get you $8,000, you're going to come and do some serious stuff to me. You're going to beat me up. And this is a man, it's been downplayed in sports media because Jonte Porter was never a particularly big star. And they said, oh, well, he was a minor star, but he was still receiving $250,000 a year to play basketball. And you can see that's all gone. He's been gambling so much that he's searching around desperately for $8,000 and he's not finding it. So he's lost all that $250,000 because he's been gambling with these guys, and he's now desperate. And so rather than get beaten up, he's forcing himself to fix the game, or at least part of the game, or an NBA game. Same thing. NBA, another NBA star, Terry Rozier, is still under investigation. Malik Beasley is now back under investigation, federal things. NFL, it's hit. This is some academic research that I worked on where I identified the NCAA. And of course, earlier this year, the Eastern District of Pennsylvania revealed a massive number of Tier 1. Again, sports media played it down, but if you take a look at my articles, you'll find them on declanhill.com or on Substack Crime Waves. I break down the indictments, and it's fairly shocking. It is a massive amount of Tier 1 NCAA games that have been corrupted. Dozens of players have been corrupted and taking part in fixes, and really going to the very heart of North American sport and youth sport. It's not just their big Tier 1. This is the Notre Dame swimming team. The entire male swimming team was suspended. They were betting both for and against themselves. Alabama, massive school for baseball. Their coach was fired after he was caught betting against themselves. Across in Iowa, Iowa State, Hunter Deckers, I've singled out. I've done that because he went on to NFL, but there were hundreds of players at Iowa and Iowa State embroiled in gambling. NHL, Evander Kane, as many of the guys from Canada will know, has got notorious problems with sports gambling. This is the kind of stuff that's going on in English Premier League. Lucas Paqueta of West Ham was eventually cleared by the English Football Association, but this kind of suspicion, these kind of allegations are clouding sport. There's illegal betting, there's match fixing, there's doping. Esports is basically the wild east, and tennis is the sport with the most issues at this moment, even though they've done some really interesting proactive work on it. But it's still so easy to fix that single game. So again, I'm moving quickly here. Let's take a look at some of the common factors of all these scandals. They're what's called prop bets. And I'm going to get into this. I'm going to really unpack all these, quote, common factors. But these are minor wages. These are easy ways in. I don't know how many, again, of the Canadian coaches have seen the excellent documentary by the Fifth Estate on cricket match fixing. There they were, the Canadian national team was allegedly fixing games at the World Cup, the T20 World Cup this year in India, and they were fixing minor parts of it, overs and small parts of it. Same problem that they have in tennis, same thing that you saw with Jonte Porter and the Major League Baseball. Gambling addiction we're going to get into. Often the salaries aren't paid. And these factor 4 and 5 is that you'll see when the investigations are handled by guys like me, who aren't paid by the sports leagues, are not paid by gambling companies, not paid by the data companies, they usually succeed. When the league investigates itself, it mostly fails. So hold those 5 factors in your mind, and let's get into the key question. Let's get into the really substantive nature of this, which is, why is this happening? Like, what's going on in this world? Hey, Alvin Johnson, welcome. Really happy that you could come. It's a very small group that we have this morning. We're recording the session. I hope that's of no problem to you, Alvin. And then we're going to edit it and send it out to coaches around the world, because this is some key stuff that we're doing here. And we really want to wake people up about the dangers, 1, of organized crime, 2, of match fixing, but very, very specifically, sports gambling addiction. And that's what I'm going to turn to Alvin and Michael and John now in the PowerPoint presentation. We're going to take a look now at the world of sports gambling, what's going on in sports gambling things. So sports gambling is a massive, massive issue here. Michael, let me ask you again to read just this PowerPoint slide for us, please.
Yeah, how big is the globalized sports gambling market?
Good, man. Keep going.
93 billion World Lottery Association, 324 billion European Sports Security Association, 500 billion Interpol, 1.5 million trillion Patrick Dre Hong Kong Jockey Club Association, and 1.63 trillion Whirlpool. That's
Well done.
basically what's in 2020.
Well done. Thank you very much, Michael. Again, round of applause for the man. I just want a different voice, Michael, again, because otherwise it just gets boring with one person talking, one person speaking. But let's just unpack that for a couple of seconds. One is you can see, it's very, very obvious, the numbers, the estimates are just expanding almost exponentially from 93 billion in 2009 to 11 years later, 1.63 trillion. Just to give some comparison, 1.63 trillion is bigger than Google and the steel industry, the worldwide steel industry combined. This is how big $1.63 trillion is and the power of this market. Europol, by the way, for those that don't know, is the European Police Association. Interpol is the International Police Association. And the final point about this slide is the last estimate of the globalized gambling market I use is in 2020. I haven't seen anything in the last 6 years, particularly after the legalization of sports gambling in both America and Canada, any good, accurate, what I would have confidence in it. I've got reasonably and relative confidence in the 1.63 trillion of Europol. That's why I stick to using that. Let's move on and just show you a couple of places which are the world capital of gambling. This, for those of you guys that don't know, is Macau. And there's a kind of a RoboCop, all remember the film from Sylvester Stallone, a RoboCop building there. That takes in just that one building. It's a casino, and it takes in 4 to 8 times the entire strip of Las Vegas. So this one tiny peninsula off the coast of mainland China is really the hub of globalized casino gambling. This is Manila, that until a few months ago was the home of international sports gambling. Again, the photo shows the kind of juxtaposition of the one percenters and the servants of the one percenters in their rich condos, and this squalid slums where the decent, regular 99% of Manila lives. It can get much, much worse than that. Plastic shacks built on top of each other, but it gives you a sense of the pirate nature and the lack of rules in Manila. This is the North American sports gambling capital. Again, it's not Las Vegas. It is in Costa Rica, and that's where most of the big sports gambling companies are based now, offshore. These are the biggest sports gambling companies in the world. MaxBet, by the way, has changed its name now back to IBC. But the power is extraordinary. I'd like to do a quick survey here. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to ask Michael and John and Alvin just to uncamerize themselves, put themselves up on camera. And I'd like you to raise your hand. I want you guys as well, if you're doing this, to raise your right hand if you've ever heard of a company called Adidas or Adidas. Have you please raise your right hand if you've done it? Michael, raise your right hand, mate. And if you're not raising your right hand, you're either incredibly lazy or you're in the wrong course, because Adidas drives international football. If you ever visit FIFA, it is the house that Adidas built, not the house that FIFA built. That roughly takes in about $10 billion a year, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, depending on the event, depending on their sales year. One of those companies that I'm just showing you guys takes in $47 billion a year. So just one of these companies they may not have heard of is 4.5 times larger than Adidas, which runs international soccer in a big way. Here is, again, for the few people who have not actually been to an international sports gambling site, and I know that has changed dramatically in the last couple of years, but just take a quick look at this for those of you guys who haven't seen it, and you'll see running down on the left-hand side is almost every single sport that you can think of, from Australian rules to hurley to futsal to bandy to I did this in the Winter Olympics earlier this year, 2026. And this represents this one single chart where you can see there's games going on, the European Basketball Champions League. This represents 60,000 single sports events a day. No. You're going to think I was going to say a year. You're going to think that I'm going to say a week or a month. No. A day. There's 60,000 gambling events a day. And within those 60,000 gambling events a day are 20,000 single data points. So if you're watching a tennis match, who's going to win? Who's going to break? Who's going to do the next service? Who's going to win the game? Who's going to win the set? Even who's going to win the match. So there's all kinds of opportunities to place bets on. So the question that will end off our first section is, what has this $1.63 trillion industry done to sports? It's made match fixing so much easier and so much more profitable. Remember, when you're looking at this sheet, when you're looking at this gambling sheet, there's 60,000 single events a day. There's $1.63 trillion who are happy to bet on the Latvian, Estonian basketball league. And even within those games are 20,000 single points. So that's the end of the first round. That's 17 minutes. By the way, I hope all you coaches are impressed with my high tech that I'm using here, the bell. And what I'd like to do now is just have a chat for a couple of minutes with John, Michael, and Alvin. And then we're going to switch to one of the main reasons that's driving this match fixing in these 60,000 potential single events a day, and that's gambling addiction. So Alvin, ask me some questions and let's have a little chat for a couple of minutes while the guys who are watching this later can go grab a quick coffee or put this on pause and just refresh their brains and then refocus in a second. So, Mr. Johnson, tell us where you're where you're joining us from.
I'm joining you from Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, we're honored to have you here, brother. Absolutely honored. And tell us a little bit about what's happening in Atlanta, Georgia.
Just a little background. I'm Canadian citizen. I moved here because of my wife was relocated because of work. So okay. I'm Canadian also.
And are you still coaching, Alvin, or have you taken a break, or what are you doing?
I coach, and I'm also a referee coach.
Good man.
So I do all the evaluation for referees, and I coach them on the field and everything.
Yeah, please look after your young ones. I coached as a teenager.
Yeah,
the abuse that they hand out to referees, even to a 17, 18-year-old kid, I still remember it. People screaming at me. I remember
it's really bad.
I remember stomping
really
in 10-year-old soccer game. It was atoms because the little kids didn't know how to throw the ball in. And it was a friendly, it wasn't a competitive match. I said, okay, guys, let's just practice doing throw-ins because we've been playing now for almost an hour and not a single guy has actually thrown the ball in correctly. You would have thought I'd done, I don't know, whatever. The parents are screaming at me. The coaches are yelling at me. And here I'm a 17-year-old guy just trying to be a good thing. And I remember when I wrote to our local referees association, there was no Alvin Johnston at my back. There was nobody saying, hey, leave our kids alone, leave our referees alone. So thank you, Alvin, for doing this kind of work.
Yes.
Basically, it's quite shocking how much this gambling phenomena is and affecting a lot of people. So that basically is really shocking.
Top man. It gets even deeper. I'm skimming over a lot just because I don't want to bore our coaches, but the depths of corruption. If you guys follow my Substack, you'll know that I infiltrated a gang of Asian match fixers as they traveled to the World Cup to fix games at the World Cup. They're back there again this year. I'm writing something for the Daily Telegraph in London about how the guys are still operating and how they've gone to almost every single international FIFA tournament and been successful at fixing one or two games. Not the big finals, not the huge games, but one or two of these games. So if they can get them at that level, They're certainly getting them at, well, I was chatting with people in Brazil, and in the Sao Paulo 15-year-olds, they're fixing. In Singapore, Hong Kong, they're fixing 10-year-old games. So we've got a major problem. All right, let's crack on. I've got my bell. I promise this won't go on for more than 17 minutes, gang. I'm going to restart it here, and we're going to really take a look into the issue that John gave away, which is gambling addiction. So let's dive into that area. I think as we go through this, there is genuinely, and I don't want to have too much fun with John, but there's a genuine question of like, why? Okay, you got this $1.63 trillion. We understand why the criminals would be interested in fixing these games. But let's take a look at gambling and this world of gambling which has been unleashed. Because if you look at myself, you look at John, you look at Michael, you look at Alvin, we're part of a demographic that thinks automatically that you have to go somewhere to place a bet, that we've got to go on a journey. We've got to drive to a casino or a racetrack or anything. And that is fundamentally shifted. These things, again, not only have they changed our mind, they have revolutionized the world of gambling. So you are walking around, if you have this, essentially with a casino in your back pocket. You can place any one of those bets on any one of those 60,000 games and those 20,000 points on this thing. It's done. It's changed everything. And even the way people gamble now is so human free. There's no actual connection with another human being. It's just fucking buttons. It's a frictionless gambling. So let's take a look at what that's done. And I'll show you, and this is one of the main themes of this discussion this morning, is that in my opinion, there's actually very little moral difference between the legal and illegal worlds of sports gambling. So the first issue is the legal gambling. They work under a model of ban or bankrupt. In other words, if you are a winning gambler, they're going to ban you. They're going to stop you from betting. If you're a losing gambler, which 99% of the population is, they're going to bankrupt you. They're going to try to track you down and try and take every single penny that you have. Let me explain that controversial statement. Again, it gets back to hunting the addict. That's the key secret inside the gambling industry. They'll use poker games. These are a couple of the most notorious gambling addicts in Hollywood. But really, I mean, they're really coming for anyone they possibly can. This is an interview that I did with an illegal bookmaker in Manila. John, can you please unmute yourself and read this, please?
The real business model of a lot of bookmakers is rely on the degenerates. They will talk about family entertainment, but really the average gambler is a loss to these bookmakers. The real money is to be made by identifying the heavy loser, the kind of person who would gamble away the baby's diaper money. That's from Manila.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, John. That's again a legal, and I want to make sure that you guys as coaches understand there. This is not a guy who's just worked in the illegal side in Manila. He's worked in the legal side. This is part of the business model. And you remember we're talking about this shift, this quote, frictionless gambling. There's been academic research in Sweden realizing and estimating that for certain people's brains, it's more addictive than heroin. A lot more addictive than heroin, 100 times more addictive. Young men are particularly prone to gambling addiction. I've shown you a picture of an empty soccer stadium just because I want you to have that image in your head of the 55,000 pathological gambling addicts, not that 14, 15-year-olds have had a bet or placed a bet, but these are young teenagers whose minds are destroyed. And the 55,000 figure is the figure that the bookmakers agree on. And it could fill a soccer stadium. But the watchdog charity groups that watch gambling addiction claim the number is more than three times higher than 55,000 of these gambling addicts. Now, this is a group, and I'm just going to take a moment here, guys, and I'm going to bend on my knees. I don't want anyone who's watching this anywhere in the world to join that group. And I beg you guys, please don't join the group. Do whatever you have to not join the group that I am about to show you. And don't let any of your friends join the group. Do what you have to do. John, Michael, Alvin, whoever else is going to be watching this program. This is not a group that you ever want to join or have any of your friends or any of your enemies, frankly, join. This is called gambling with lies. And every single one of the people who's staring back at the camera has lost their children through suicide to gambling addiction. The website that they have is full of pictures of their sons and daughters who've killed themselves. And just take a quick look at them. You see these guys are happy people, smiling, and they've been sucked into this world of legalized gambling. It is this frictionless gambling is genuinely far ahead of where our politicians, many of our politicians are addicted to the taxes that legal gambling brings in. So they don't want to deal with this in any serious way. This is a colleague and friend of mine, Harry Levant, who was a gambling addict. He was a lawyer. He stole more than $5 million of his client's money, including the widow of his former best friend. He was convicted. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, he was going to kill himself before he went off to jail. And he said, no, I'm going to turn this, I'm going to, quote, make this into a positive experience. And so now he does a lot of research. He and I have testified at Congress in Washington about this issue. But he's pointing out that 20% of people with gambling addiction, far higher than drug addicts or alcoholics or anything, will attempt suicide. Let me take a look as well on this about, this is legalized gambling, bookmakers, many of whom who operate in North America. This is particularly caught in the UK, United Kingdom. So gambling addicts, people who have a brief moment of self-awareness, can ban themselves from bookmaker. However, what happens is, remember, these guys are searching for the degenerates. That's their term. That's their private term for those addicts. And to them, a list of gambling addicts is manna from heaven. So they get that site and they offer them freebies. They text them constantly as they're going down the road. This is more research from the UK. Again, from one of these gambling charities, these watchdog like Gambling with Lives. This is Gambling Aware. And I'll allow you guys to read this yourselves, but you can see the essential model is that the lion's share, 86% of their profits for these legal bookmakers are coming from just 5% of their customers. I can't show you any statistic that more adequately explains what is going on in the legal world. And they're coming after your players. I began the conversation, I began this talk with a discussion of all the different scandals, many of the different scandals. I mean, really just kind of skimmed the surface. But you looked at Hunter Deckers at Iowa State. One of your colleagues, the coach of Iowa, comes out at a press conference and says, if you think this is only happening in Iowa and only happening in the state, you're in a dream world. This is happening in 49 states across America. It's happening all across Canada. It's happening all across the Caribbean. Our young men, particularly our young men, it happens as well with women, but the marketing is driven to young men, are getting hooked. And if you don't know who is a gambling addict on your team above the age of 16, you're living in a dream world. You've got to have that serious conversation with your team now, with the parents, because I do not want you joining Gambling with Lives. I don't want your players being sucked into this. Look, let me end with a video. It was an undercover video of a guy who used to work in a bookmaking company, one of the big companies. I want you to hear his voice. I want you to hear what it's like there. Because at the moment, the only thing you're hearing is me. And I'm just blathering away at you. I'm hoping I'm catching you. But for those of the guys who are still quite skeptical or cynical or this, I want you to hear what they're like there. So let me get in. Alvin, I'll deal with your question at the end here. I want all the coaches to see this and to see inside this world. Okay.
Gambling is used extensively all over the world to launder money. If I was to estimate, based on the amount of accounts I've seen of that nature, it would have to be millions and millions of dollars that is laundered every year. It's just a scam. The fact that nobody can win, we only want losing customers. That's it. It was just fucked. And they know what advertising works, what algorithm works, they know how to maximize their profit, which is to get people to lose more and more. It is just rotten to the core. I was a customer account supervisor at one of the biggest gambling companies in the world. With 21st century technology, the punter doesn't really know what's going on. And behind the scenes, there's all of this maths going on that analyzes your betting and ensures the company wins. It will always win. Customers would be categorized based on their profitability. So if a customer lost millions of dollars, they would be labeled a VIP. And only the best staff would talk to them. But if you were a problem customer, that meant that you were winning money. So you'd be labelled with a big badge that said that you're a problem, and that needs to be dealt with. The risk rating is done by an algorithm. It's just how much they've lost against whatever other metrics the company's decided. The risk rating essentially turns off winners and stops them from betting and cranks up the dial for anybody that's losing so they can lose more and more and more money. It's actually a design feature to ensure that those that lose are allowed to lose more. So if a customer says something that could indicate they've got a problem with gambling, you would just have to go through a series of questions and just tick, 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 and that was it. Suicide calls were to be dealt with by only a senior manager, but I had a manager tell me that they just had to make a decision based on the threat and stick to it, and that it didn't matter once they hung up the phone because they didn't know whether or not they followed through with their threat or not, so that it didn't really matter. That's probably still the worst thing I've ever heard anybody say, because you don't know whether or not they killed themselves or not. It didn't matter.
Ladies and gentlemen, that goes on for some time. I could keep sharing it, but you get the point. I've got down on my knees today to implore you guys to take this moment and realize how serious this new plague. These bookmakers, legal, illegal, are searching for your players. They're searching for your young guys. They're coming after them. And they want to take their money, they want to take their parents' money, they want to strip them of everything and destroy their souls, their brains, whatever. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, I haven't heard this from anybody before. Like, what's this guy? What's this crazy guy? Yeah, you do organized crime research, but why are you? Because I'm one of the very, very, very few academics and journalists that don't take money from the gambling industry. I don't. Many of the other guys do. Many of your mainstream media is addicted to the money the bookmakers are pumping into their media companies. Many of the governments that should be regulating this industry are addicted to the taxes that they get from this company. Our some of our senior regulators in Ontario, Canada, switched within months of supposedly regulating the new online sports gambling world and went to work for the bookmakers. And one of them is now running a casino. Like this is what has happened. It's been an abdication of responsibility. So it is incumbent upon men like me that are independent, who aren't going to take money from bookmakers, and let you guys know, because I do not want to see anyone, any coach, any kid, any parent facing that suicide, facing those issues, and it will happen. Guys, you've got my emails address. I'm going to bring it back up here now one more time. Really appreciate your time. I really very much appreciate your work that you guys do as coaches. Sorry about this. I'm just struggling, as you guys can see, about this one. Here, let me just make sure I've got my stuff here. There we go. There we go. I hope that's helping you guys. I just want to make sure that it ends on my there we go. All right. So you guys can get my emails. You can get in contact with me if you've got any problems. I'll be happy to put you, if I can, to the right people, gambling counselors, addiction counselors, whoever. But do take this issue seriously. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Good. I got a couple questions for you, if you can hang in there, Declan.
Of course, John.
The one thing is, as I said, when I was reading your book, The Fix, which I would recommend to anyone, you mentioned that you're actually, while you were doing all your investigations, you're fearful for your life at times. That was kind of interesting. You might want to just elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, I will, but I think, for the coaches, that's an interesting, good story about match fixing and how I infiltrated a gang of match fixers that are going to be at the 2026 World Cup. They travel around the world. If you guys want to see more of that, go to my Substack, Crime Waves, or follow me, declanhill.com. I talk about that a lot. And as I said, I've written a couple of books, and there's a Hollywood thing on it. Because I infiltrated this organized crime gang, at that time, nobody knew that these gangs were traveling around the world, corrupting, major international sports. I revealed it. It's kicked off a multi-billion-dollar sports integrity industry. And what I noticed early on was that much of the fight against the quote fixers and the corruption was being influenced by the gambling industry. So, John, I did what you and your viewers would want me to do. I just took a step back from taking cash from the gambling industry. I'm not going to take their cash. It's not who I am and why I risked my life. Because I risked my life to protect sport. It has given me some of the best moments of my life, and I don't want to see it corrupted. Alvin,
thanks,
in Atlanta, do you have any questions for me?
Yes, my question was, what is the line? There's a fine line between legal gambling and illegal gambling. Why is it so? It's so unclear.
Yeah, look, I think in your usual astute way, Alvin, you put your finger right on the pulse of the question. And to be frank with you, I don't think there's much of a difference. I think when you're unleashing an addictive property, it's really the product that's the problem, not where it's coming from. I would suggest to you that this is an industry where the lines between quote legal and illegal cross constantly. You go and interview, as I have, the quote illegal guys. They're like, look, we used to work for the legal guys, and many of them will flip and start working for the legal guys again. Many of the legal guys will go and start working for the quote illegal guys, and what they're working on is perfectly legal. So in my next book that's coming out next year through McClellan Stewart of Canada and Claret Press in the UK, I start the book interviewing one of the world's top bookmakers, illegal, And he's like, what are you talking about? It's perfectly legal for me to do what I'm doing right here. I'm not breaking any laws right here. As soon as I cross the street on that side of the street, it's illegal. But over here, it's perfectly legal. And I don't understand as a bookmaker why it's legal for me on this side of the street and illegal for me on that side of the street. So, Alvin, what concerns me is the addiction that this industry has unleashed, rather than whether it's quote legal or illegal. I think that's really a question of marketing now. John, I hope that's answered your questions. I'm going to ring off here.
Yeah.
Promised my guys, all the coaches who may be watching this, that I would be short, brief, and focused. So it's been an absolute honor to speak to you guys today. I hope the message has been strong and that we can save one life today in this conversation.
Thank you very much, Declan. I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll look forward to getting the message out to as many coaches as possible.
Awesome.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much, guys.
Have a good day, everyone.
Michael, thank you. You do me great honor. Thanks so much, guys.